Welcome to Bet On It. Kelly Stewart here for the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. We got Marco D'Angelo, Joe Raineri, and of course, Teddy Covers sitting there on the in seat, but he does get to go first Saturday, 4:30 p.m. on ABC. We got the Houston Texans all the way up to some nines here on the Wager Talk odds screen. Teddy at Kansas City, 41.5. We know those odds are, well, closer to 8.5, but the books are protecting themselves from those elusive teasers that we know they got hammered on early.
Yeah, no doubt. And of course, we talk about 9 as being a teaser protection line. And certainly the books that take a lot of teaser action have a 9 on this game. 8.5, the more prevailing number for Houston and Kansas City. And look, the Texans did something last week that Super Bowl winners do. In fact, the last 3 teams to do it all won the Super Bowl. Of course, last time it happened was 2002. The Buccaneers, the Ravens, and the 49ers in 89 were all Super Bowl winners that all had 4 interceptions, an interception return for a touchdown, and 4 sacks in a playoff game. And that dates back to 1963. So only 4 previous teams have won it and have done it. And the last 3 have all won the big game in February. So certainly that seems a bit ambitious for Houston at this stage. And of course, I mean, the Texans, that entire game changed on one play. They're 3rd and 16. There's 2.5 minutes left in the first half. They've been trailing throughout. They haven't done anything offensively. C.J. Stroud fumbles the snap, and next thing you know, boom, he picks it up, fires downfield for a 34-yard completion, and all of a sudden the Texans go nuts, lead at halftime, control the second half. So we'll give Stroud credit for making a big play when they needed it. He said he was mad at himself afterwards for even dropping the ball. D'Amico Ryans, the play he made on that fumble snap to throw to Hutchinson, that's a play that just sparked our entire team. Seeing the way our guys responded after he made the play, outstanding performance by CJ. Great. That was against a very flawed Chargers team, a Chargers team that really only had 1 pass catcher, a Chargers team that had major issues on the offensive line. And of course, that was last week. Now, these 2 teams played a very meaningful game in Week 16 for both teams. 27-19, Kansas City won. They covered. They were -4/-3.5 in that ball game. That was a Saturday game in the midst of that stretch where both teams played 3 games in 11 days. Both teams 7 of 13 on third downs. Both teams 5.4 yards per play in that game. The difference, 2 Texans turnovers and 1 of 3 for Houston in the red zone. Will that happen again? Because it was a very even box score, and you don't normally see that when you talk about laying more than a touchdown in a playoff game. So there's certainly reasons to point towards Houston here. I ain't going to do it, though. All right. The Chiefs played their best football in December. Make no mistake about it. This team was riddled with injuries early on. They had all kinds of offensive issues. That was not the case down the stretch. Mahomes, of course, 6-0 in the divisional rounds, the most wins without a loss in any playoff round in NFL history. And Kansas City, after resting their starters Week 18, as healthy, and of course having the bye last week, they're as healthy as they've been all year. Chris Jones is healthy. He hasn't played since Week 15. Isaiah Pacheco is supposed to play. Juwan Taylor is supposed to play. Starting quarterback Jalen Watson, who's been on injured reserve since Week 7, he's been practicing and could be activated. And let's not forget, a receiving core that was very limited all year. Well, they traded for DeAndre Hopkins. Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown came back from injury. Xavier Worthy showing a lot of growth late in the season. Travis Kelce, they've been treating him with kid gloves all year. All right. So I think KC's offense right now for this game, probably better than what we saw most of the season, and their defense is still elite. How does Houston score if they fall behind? That worries me a lot. I understand it's not easy to lay with Kansas City. I get it. They went on an 0-7 ATS stretch from October through December. But their last 3 tries as favorites, 2 against playoff teams, 3-0 straight up, 3-0 against the spread. Kansas City's the class here. It's the only way we can look for this matchup. I don't think Houston will respond well if they fall behind. It's Chiefs or pass for this bet.
Chiefs or pass for Teddy, and I'll be patiently waiting to see if I can't find a spot to tease that same Chiefs team. Next game up is Saturday, 8 p.m. on Fox. Washington, 9.5-point underdog at Detroit, 55.5, Marco. This game is my best bet, so I'm not going to do any follow-up questions. Tell me about this one.
All right, Kelly, this one might be a little square, and sometimes, it is hip to be square. There's only one way I can look at this game, and that is I look at these two offenses, I see 55.5, and I think it's not enough. You look at what Detroit did last week. They did something that was totally not their MO. They surprised Tampa Bay. They had 69 offensive plays to just 44 for Tampa Bay. Now, we know that the Washington offense can go up and down the field, but they did it methodically last week. They had a 17-play drive against Tampa. Tampa just couldn't get on the field with the number of plays that they were able to run, and then a couple costly turnovers. The one by Baker Mayfield late in the game really hurt them, and they ended up losing. But more importantly, the teams didn't take chances in the game, because it was always a one-possession game. Nobody ever got separation. When you look at this Lions offense, nobody has stopped them all year. And what makes you think that Washington's going to be able to stop them like they stopped Tampa Bay last week? They're not. Last 5 games of the season, the Lions scored 31 or more points in every single game. What's that mean for this game in the total? Well, when they score, Washington's going to have to answer. Or vice versa, if the Detroit defense that we saw most of the season shows up and gives up points, they're going to continue to trade points. It's not going to be a field goal battle. We did see the Lions play their best defensive game of the year, the final game of the regular season against Minnesota. But was that really the Lions, or was it a combination of that bad offensive line for Minnesota? Because we saw the same exact thing happen to Minnesota the very next week against the Rams. I think both teams go up and down the field. And as I said, whenever the game gets separation where it's 10 points or more, you're going to have whoever's trailing is not going to settle for field goals. They're going to go on fourth down, on the 4th and 2s, the 4th and 3s, and we will get points in this game. Personally, I see this game as like a 38-27 game. I do lean to Detroit in the game. I got them with the 38, but we got 11-point margin there on a 9.5-point spread. I like the total better. I think there's more room there. I think this game gets into the 60s. I don't see how the winning team is not at 35 or more points in this one. It's square, but sometimes it's okay to be SpongeBob SquarePants when you cash a ticket.
Oh boy, that is going to turn into a meme. You just wait, Marco D'Angelo. One of these days, I'm going to figure out how to use the internet and do that to you. Sunday. Wait, before I get into Sunday, I forgot to tell you guys about our 3-day all access pass. Get 1 day free. So if you buy a 3-day, you're getting a free day. 4 days for the price of 3 for just $69. You guys can maximize your sports betting experience at wagertalk.com. Now, this is for a limited time only. So head over there. No coupon code needed. wagertalk.com. Joe Raineri, you're up next. And this is a game that I have not quite been able to figure out. And that's because I haven't been able to figure out the Philadelphia Eagles all season long. Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern on NBC. The Rams are a 6-point underdog. Total 44. Let me guess. You got a first half play for me here.
Shocker. I'm shocked you went that way, Kev. Really. Of course I have a first half play for you here. And it makes total sense in this game. By the way, I think there's only one matchup of teams that have not already played each other this season here. These two teams faced off back in week 12. The Eagles went into L.A. that week. I believe it was a Sunday night game, in fact, and they beat the Rams 37-20. Now, I'll tell you this, that was a pretty close game in the first half, Kel. It was 7-6. Rams were leading until about the last minute and 30, and then the Eagles scored a touchdown before the half ended, and quite honestly, like they have done all season long, they have dominated the third and fourth quarter of games. They eventually outscored the Rams 24-7 in the second half. And outside of a late empty netter touchdown with about a minute left, that game wasn't even remotely close, except for the first half, which is usually where we see actually both of these teams start very, very slow throughout this seaon. But Philadelphia, no doubt, not great in the first quarter, much better in the second, dominate time of possession, and the ball in the third and fourth quarter. The bottom line is, since week 5 for Philadelphia, they win football games by running the ball and playing great defense. That's how it works with Philly. For the Rams, they've got a situation here where they're going to have a little less rest now because their game was on Monday. It has been just a whirlwind with this team, with the fires in LA and scheduling and everything else. Not to mention, we know going to Philadelphia, looking at the weather, not exactly going to be a great sunny day there in Philly for this game. Weather could also play a role in this. But the Rams defense, the Eagles defense thrive on getting turnovers. Both of these teams don't turn the ball over a ton. To me, instead of trying to figure out whether or not the Eagles can pull away, and if they do, it likely is going to happen in the second half, I think looking at this game and splitting it half and looking at that first half under, to me, expecting a big defensive effort here. Listen, we've seen Philadelphia 12-2-1 to the under in the last 15 home playoff games. Their games average closing number of around 43 and a half in those home playoff games. The totals, 36. That's what they end up scoring. So I like the full game under in there. I certainly like 21 and a half while you can get it. I like the under in this game. I think the defenses for both these teams is what's going to shine. And we already have documented Philadelphia and their ability to run away with games in the second half. Don't know that they'll do it here, but I have a pretty good feeling that this game is going to be one score heading into the break, and I don't think we get over 3 touchdowns. I'm looking at the first half under in this one.
Yeah, I like the game under, Joe. So if you like the first half under, that is a nice little correlation. All right, a game that I kind of got stuck with breaking down, and reality is I had to really dig deep to decide a side that I liked here. Sunday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern on CBS. Baltimore is a 1-point favorite now at Buffalo, total 51.5. This one opened, the Bills being the favorite. I thought, all right, the Bills last week, I took the Broncos. Broncos march right down the field, score 7. I am amped. I'm going, all right, here's Bo Nix. I owe him an apology. I will be buying a jersey. But that was pretty much all she wrote. The Broncos, throughout all their trick plays and everything else, just could not get this Bills team stopped. One of the best red zone offenses. And then you got on the flip side, you got the Ravens, who just absolutely throttled the Steelers. Yeah, they let them come back there a little bit in the second half. But my first thought process, do I really want to bet against Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry here? And then my chat with Pam Maldonado and Ariel Epstein reminded me that I said Josh Allen was going to be the MVP this year. And I think that still holds true. Josh Allen is by far the most valuable player for his team. But I have to kind of coincide with my original Super Bowl winner in the Ravens. This team is insanely talented. This team has absolutely showed that they are one of the best rushing defenses in the country. They're giving up less than 78 yards on the ground per game. Let's also not forget these two played each other in week 4. And if you remember, the Ravens just curb stomped the Bills 35-10. So keep in mind here when looking later on in the season, I think that the Ravens have more marquee wins. They are 8-3 this season against playoff teams, and the Bills are currently 3-3 against teams that made the postseason. As much as I love Josh Allen, I think that he is an intricate part to his team. I like the Ravens here, 9-3 on the road this year. Well, last 12 road games. Sorry. I know that the Bills were slotted as favorites, and I think that sometimes those opening numbers are really telling, but I think that sharp money coming in on the Ravens fast and furious right out of the gate was the right side here. I like the Ravens to upset Bills Mafia in a absolute and utter close one. I think this one would not shock anybody in the slightest. 27-24 final. Still squeaks under the total there by a half a point. Each and every week, VR joins us to give us some of that gold. And this week is no different. VR, what have you dug up for us this week in the NFL?
All right. The public hasn't really gotten to the window yet. As we know, when it comes to the playoffs, just like the regular season, most of the recreational money comes in late, meaning 24 hours to about an hour before kickoff. And rest assured, that money is overwhelming as opposed to the sharp money, betting syndicate money that may come in earlier in the week. That's why we see it all the time, especially come playoffs and Super Bowl, where there's just a ton of value, especially leading in the kickoff, because the lines get shaded even more so towards those biases. We see it in the Super Bowl with the overs being bet by the recreational bettors, jacked up. And Super Bowl Sunday, the betting syndicates come in and pick off a lot of those unders, and the books are just fine with it because it helps limit the risk as long as they don't get middled. So far, here's what we're seeing in the NFL. Start off with Houston and Kansas City. I mean, Houston's coming off a really good game at home. Quarterback, a higher success rate than expected against a better defense that he's ultimately going to be facing this week. But the line isn't reflecting Houston's side because Kansas City money continues to come in from the sharp bettors. And more importantly, you see the books having defense against the teaser. We know how powerful they are in the playoffs, and that's why you're seeing this Kansas City line continue to climb up. Problem is this, we already know we have a line to compare it to. Kansas City closed as a 3.5-point favorite against this same team just a few weeks ago. Now you got to add in home field advantage in the playoffs. You got to add in the return of some injured players plus the extra rest. But how many points is all that worth? I think this line's gotten a little bit away from Kansas City. I think there's some value if you could tease Kansas City down through those Wong numbers, especially if some public money comes in on Houston to help lower that. But I just can't lay it right now. I know some guys that did buy the 0.5 point when it came out at 7.5 and laid the 7 on Kansas City. I think that was a good bet. Also, sharp money on the under 42.5, under 42 as well. Commanders, Lions, another teaser protection move where the books are jacking it up, where you now have to use about a 7-point teaser to go through the Wong numbers. And we know that's no good. You don't need to use the teaser, especially when it comes to the playoffs. And we know you pick the winner more times than not, you're going to cash a ticket. Favorites blow out the dogs, or the dogs win outright more times than not. We saw it last week, and it's a trend that continues year after year in the playoffs. And I think that's why you're seeing this line climb more and more and more. Listen, as well as Jaden Daniels has played, eventually I think the regression towards the mean is coming. You got a rookie quarterback on the road. Detroit's a hype team that's been waiting all season, getting it done throughout the season, more importantly. They've been winning by margin, unlike Kansas City. So when it comes to this game, I do like the Lions a little bit. Rams and Eagles, this is what I can tell you. I don't have an opinion on this game, but I did see some Eagles money when this line opened, but the resistance came in at 6. That's why you don't see 6s across the board. It'll be interesting to see when the betting public gets to the window if they fire on the Eagles, especially if they use them in teasers, because they don't care about wonging. They just care about bringing down the favorite to a pretty much a money line. Or if they start money line parlaying this Eagles team just to win at home. We have a game to compare to just November 24th. The Eagles were 3-point favorites, so you could do the adjustment yourself coupled with the playoff home field advantage. And then finally, Bills-Ravens, we have a flip of the favorite. Bills open as the favorite, no surprise, they're at home. But the money's come in on Baltimore, at least from some of the sharp bettors. Not a big move. When you go from +1 to -1, doesn't tell you all that much, especially when the opportunity's there to lock in both money lines at plus money. What'll be interesting to see is, will it get to 1.5? Because if it gets to 1.5, rest assured, you will see even the betting syndicates and sharp bettors come in and tease that Buffalo side up through that 3, through that 6, 7, and get it up to 7.5. I think that's why we're seeing -1, even with some juice on that Baltimore side. I have one set of power ratings that make Baltimore about a 3-point favorite in this game. I have another set of power ratings that make them about a 2-point favorite, but add in home field advantage, and you got the game pretty much where it is at a pick'em. We have seen under money from the sharp bettors on pretty much every game. No surprise, weather coupled with jacked up totals to protect against the public betting these ones over. But if you missed any of the under numbers you liked, if you liked it under, just wait till closer to game time. I think these should start to trickle up unless you get terrible weather. It's pretty much what we're looking at. Don't forget, last call is on Saturday and Sunday, where we will have up to the minute information for you. So hope you do some damage this divisional weekend.
Yeah, we have a great time on Saturdays and Sundays with VR. We get college basketball, we get tennis. Sometimes we get just the most off the wall things. We don't care. If it's making us money, we want to bet it. VR, we'll see you this weekend, bright and early there on the West Coast before the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. Good luck this week and do some damage. All right, let's welcome in the proptologist, Andy Lang at Bump Sports and at Andy Lang Bets. Andy, what are you going to do? I mean, you've been a TikTok star. Now, where are we going to move all these great "Is This Trend Your Friend" video?
Well, all the videos are up on all the different ones, Twitter, Instagram. So we'll just keep going. I have my own, or I have my handle of Blue Sky, if that's your cup of tea. So they'll still be out there, but yeah, it's a bummer that we're losing TikTok. It's such a confusing situation going on there, but still plenty of places to see the videos we do every day. Is this trend your friend?
As a TikTok hater, I'm not mad because now I don't have to use it, but I did really enjoy recording on there because they have a great editing feature. I digress. Our audience is here because, well, they want to know the best prop bet for the weekend. Andy, I dabbled in some college props like last weekend. Kind of frustrating. Dabbling in the wild card round, even more frustrating. Help me make sense of what we need to be looking for the divisional round. I feel like all season long, I want to be a little contrarian and I want to take unders and I want to take no's or yes to throw an interception or some of those types of things in some of my lineups. And that just hasn't been the case over the last few weeks. It seems, rather square.
Well, guess who's back? Back again. No, it's not me. It's David Montgomery. I didn't know if we were going to see this guy. And Kelly, this is a guy who's been seeing the doctor and he's back healthy. And I am happy to have him back in my life because his over receiving yards prop was dynamite before he got injured. The number is 14.5, and I will happily take the over here. This is a guy who has gone over 7 games in a row that he started. And not only that, he's had 20 yards at least in all of those games. I think people got to picture David Montgomery as, the muscle in the backfield, the guy that gets the short yardage. He's a very good receiver. Multiple games he's had not 1, not 2, but 3 catches. And this 14.5, this is doable in 1 catch. I love that he's coming back from injury, fresh legs, full participant. So he doesn't have any limitations. I saw an interview with him. He looks happy to be back. And those fresh legs, I bet they have a few tricks up their sleeve with him. Jahmyr Gibbs has done a great job filling in, but what a great time to bring in David Montgomery and give Gibbs a little bit of a rest because of the workload that he's had to endure. So David Montgomery over 14.5 receiving. I think he's going to be 100%. And this is a Washington team that gives up 23 yards receiving per game to running backs. David Montgomery, best bet. And as always, Kelly, take 2. Do what David Montgomery did. Take 2 of these and call me in the morning. It apparently has worked for him.
I love that for David. Not so much for my best bet, but we'll get into that later on in the show. Andy, anything you'd like to leave our audience with?
Yeah, we've got NFL best bets that are up. We finished the season really strong and continued into the playoffs, 12-6 the last 2 weeks. And we're running that special buy 3 days, get the 4th free. We have a 5% UFC best bet that is up. So that'll come with it, as well as all of our Australian Open plays, NBA, NHL, everything for the next 4 days. Buy 3 days, get the 4th free.
Love it. At Bump Sports, at Andy Lang Bets. Make sure you guys are giving him a follow. He's one of the best. And of course, he's our resident proptologist. Now, normally I'd be welcoming in Art to Caesar from the Westgate Superbook, but he is a little under the weather. So we're going to wish him well and hope he will be back Saturday for last call to give us a look behind the counter there at the Superbook. But now we're on to Ralph Michaels. He brings us trends and angles all football season long, college football, NFL. But Ralph, you have a special loaded right now at wagertalk.com, a 5% play for the national championship, new customers only. You're going to get it for $1 using coupon code NEW34. I'm excited, and I hope we're on the same side.
You know what, Kel? I just want to mention this. Number 1 in college football bowls, going 11-2, 85%. My college football best bets, 4%, 5%, 8-0. And listen to this. My football best bets, 4% and 5%, 14-1, 93%. New customers, if you've never bought at Wager Talk, this is the reason why. And my 5% top play will cost you $1.
That is wonderful. You know what else is wonderful, Ralph? That guide you put together for the playoffs filled with tons of great info. WT.buzz/RM. Give us some tidbits for the divisional round.
Now, I just want you guys to know this is going to be a pretty vanilla one. Why? Because we have a small sample size, but it's important to know history when you're picking the future. So let's just look at the numbers and you can make your own determinations. Since 2010, Kelly, playoff teams that have had a bye have gone 36-12 straight up. That is 75%. They've gone 23-24 against the spread, 49%. This one surprised me, though. In this round, teams that have had a bye, 28 overs and 20 unders. That is a strong 58.3% to the over. When I break down those teams off a bye, those teams that are a home favorite of 7 or more, they've gone 45% against the spread and 55% to the over. And when you have a small home favorite, they have actually done better. Small home favorites have gone 56% against the spread and over under 12 overs, 7 unders since 2006. That is 63.2% to the under. Couple subsets I ran, Kel. If you have a bye and your team is off an away win, like the Commanders, you have to go on the road for the wild card round and this round. The home team like Detroit with a bye, only 11-14 against the spread, 44%. The over-under exactly the same, 11-14, 44%. And if a team like the Commanders won as an away dog and are now playing a team off a bye, those teams like Detroit have only gone 7-11, 39%. So not quite what you would think when you have a rested team versus a team on back-to-back road games off a dog win. 2 more things I just want to share with you. In this round, with the team off a bye, if the road team went over the last game, we have 12 overs and 6 unders. And in this round, if both teams played in the wild card, the home team is exactly 50-50. The over-under is 55.6% to the over. That is the Bills, Ravens, and Eagles, Rams. But in this round, if both teams played in the wild card and they each scored 25 points, it's only happened 9 times since 2006. Those teams 8-1 to the over. So the strongest trend, again, a small sample size, actually leans Bills and Ravens over the total.
Ooh, I'm happy to know that my best bet got included in there. A couple of tidbits. Speaking of best bets, we're going to get Ralph out of here. WT.buzz/RM, guys, new customers. Get his 5% play on the national championship for just $1 using coupon code NEW34. All right, guys, let's get into some of those best bets. Time to bring back Joe, Teddy, and Marco. Per usual, Marco D'Angelo gets to go up first. Marco, I'm excited to hear about your best bet, but more excited to hear about what you've got going on over at wagertalk.com.
Well, Kelly, we ran it last week. We're running it again this week. You guys liked the special, tremendous response. And what we do? Well, we delivered winners again. Another 5% winner on Saturday it was with the Houston Texans. First quarter looked a little shaky, but after that, they settled down, and what a second half they had. Easy win on the Texans. Probably are going to have another 5% this weekend, just waiting on confirming weather and everything else, but you won't miss a play if you grab the 7-day package. All access, use coupon code MD77. You'll pick up 7 days all access, all plays for $77. Remember, those 5% plays by themselves are $35. All right, let's get to this week's best bet, and we are going to go to the city of brotherly love. And I know our beloved producer maybe was sweating a little bit in the first half as Philadelphia got off to a very slow start in that game. Jalen Hurts, well, he looked like he was rusty, that he missed the final 3 weeks of the season. But they found a way to win that game. Or did Green Bay find a way to lose it? Green Bay definitely gift wrapped that game for Philadelphia last week with the 4 turnovers, but there's no question of last week's winners, Philadelphia was the least impressive. So why am I jumping on them? Well, that's when I like a team, because I love public perception, because it's usually wrong. And people are going to look at Philadelphia and say just how I opened it. Green Bay gave them the game. I look at that game and I'm looking at the Rams. The Rams are coming off an impressive win on Monday night. We were on the Rams. Why were we on the Rams? Well, a couple different reasons. First of all, we knew that, well, we didn't know, but we thought for sure that Minnesota might have a carryover effect from that Detroit game on the final week of the regular season. They went from the number 1 seed to the number 5 seed. And unfortunately for Sam Darnold, he got to see those ghosts again. He had a horrible game against Detroit, and he had probably just as bad or even worse against the Rams last week. The Rams had a lot of things going for them. One, everybody questioned what was going to be the mental psyche of the Rams with everything going on in California with the fires. They came out and they played like they were playing for a city and trying to give everybody, 3.5 hours of distraction. They did that. But let's also not forget, facing Minnesota was very easy for that defense. Okay, the offensive line for Minnesota hasn't played well the last couple of weeks, but when you're preparing a game plan for Minnesota, should have been pretty easy for Sean McVay, because it was like looking in a mirror. Kevin O'Connell, coach of the Vikings, where'd he cut his teeth? Yeah, with Sean McVay being on the offense. So he basically was defending his own offense, and they did it very well. It's going to be a different story this week. And what I liked last week, you've got to expect Jalen Hurts to play better this week. Showed a little bit of the rust. It was a horrible first half. Still didn't have a lot of yards last week, only threw for 121. But as bad as the passing game was, Barkley still got 119 yards, 4.8 yards per carry. He'll get more this week against the Rams. They'll have a little bit of better balance. And the one thing that the Rams have to concern themselves with that they didn't have to last week, they've got a quarterback that can run the football versus a quarterback that was a deer caught in headlights and was a complete statue in the pocket last week. I like Philadelphia to get the job done. I like taking teams that win ugly, and there's no question that win for Philadelphia was ugly, but they got it done. I like to take those teams the next week. And let's be honest about the Rams. They're 6-1 down the stretch. So, yeah, they look like they got a ton of momentum. But the only playoff teams they faced over the final 7 games of the season, they faced Buffalo. They beat them in that shootout game, 44-42. But if you remember, and I think you were on it as well, Kelly, we were all over the Rams in that game because it was an absolute horrible scheduling spot for the Buffalo Bills. They were coming off the revenge game against Kansas City, then that Sunday night blizzard laugher they had against the 49ers. And who did they have after the Rams? Yeah, a team called the Detroit Lions. That was a horrible scheduling spot, sandwich of all sandwiches, and the Rams delivered in that one. They still gave up 42 points in that one. And then we look at them going down the stretch. I'm not impressed with the teams they beat. I'll go ahead. I'll take Philly. They get the job done. Lay it. I know Dan's smiling. Let's hope we're both smiling after Sunday. Lay it with the Eagles.
God, Marco's such a suck up. I just can't handle it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
No, all jokes aside, Marco, I think Marco's been one of the hottest guys at Wager Talk all season long. So I can't be against him here, and it is what it is. So next up, we're going to go to Joe, who probably has another first half play for you guys.
Yep, pretty much. Yep, that's what we're doing. We're going to go to Kansas City. If it ain't broke, people, we ain't fixing it here, and you guys know that. So we're going to go to that Kansas City and Houston game. And again, another one of these matchups that we've already seen this season. You may recall, I believe it was week 16, in fact, where Tank Dell ended up getting hurt there, and that kind of changed the trajectory of everything. However, prior to that, this was a pretty darn good game between these two teams. And now the Texans get that playoff win last week against the Chargers. And how did they get it against the Chargers? Well, they got it because of that pass rush and because of that defense. And I think, having already seen Patrick Mahomes here and this Kansas City offense, I think that is going to help their effort here early. And why early? Well, you guys know, if you've been watching the show all season long, we've been telling you here that when it comes to first half plays, the Texans and the Lions were the two teams that you wanted to back because they were the best against the number early in games. Unlike Detroit, however, Houston fell apart in the second half all year long. But there is absolutely no doubt. 14-4 against the first half spread this season. D'Amico Ryans, in fact, 26-11 against the number in the first half as a head coach here at the Houston Texans. 26-9 in the first half when C.J. Stroud is his quarterback. This team comes out firing. They game plan very well. Their in-game adjustments, however, are a bit head-scratching. Keep in mind also that the Kansas City Chiefs, and I'm not suggesting that Houston is winning this game in any way, shape, or form, however, it's been a few minutes since Kansas City's had to play any meaningful football. In fact, I believe the last meaningful snap that their starters took were back on December 25th. What does that mean? Well, the Chiefs usually come out slow, but that usually works to their advantage. Why? Because nobody wins games in the second half like the Kansas City Chiefs. They have been absolutely unbelievable this year. Now, keep in mind, when the starters played, they went pretty much across the board here and lost only, one game this season here, but they have done an amazing job when their back is against the wall in the third quarter or the fourth quarter. This team plays its best in the second half when they are usually trailing. I mean, it is unbelievable when you look at the numbers here and what this team has been able to do when trailing at the halftime. In fact, it shouldn't be new to you guys. Since 2020, the Chiefs 21-12 straight up when trailing at the half. That's 64%. Nobody's even remotely close to what they do. As a fact, the rest of the NFL only wins about 23% of the games outright when they are trailing at the half. Not Mahomes, not Andy Reid, not the Chiefs. So hopefully what's going to happen here is the Texans are going to keep this thing close early. And then guess what the second half bet is going to be in this game? Yes, if it ain't broke, we ain't fixing it. I expect the Texans to be very competitive early. I expect Kansas City to win it late. If it ain't broke, we ain't fixing it, Cal. I'll take the Texans in the first half in this one.
I don't blame you. If you like the dog, bet them early. The Kansas City Chiefs will find a way to win and possibly cover. Teddy covers a game that I broke down earlier. Baltimore now a 1-point favorite at Buffalo. Is that your best bet? Or are we opposite?
No, we're together on this one, Kel. But before I talk about Baltimore and Buffalo, I do want to let you know about the Teddy 7 special right now. 7-day all access, just $77 if you use promo code Teddy7 at checkout. 67% wild card weekend. We made money for the clients last week. There is a 5% big ticket available. 69% run. 69, dude, with 5% big tickets in the NFL. So again, promo code Teddy7 at checkout to get that 7-day all access pass. So Baltimore's done this before. All right. Ravens have won their initial playoff game, and they've been unable to follow up with victories. It's happened repeatedly in the Lamar Jackson era. They've never more than one playoff game in a season. And obviously, last week, a pretty dominant performance against Pittsburgh. Very interesting quotes after the game. Boy, they sounded like a mature veteran team. Raquan Smith, we're just getting started. This is the appetizer to what we have on the menu. Derrick Henry, we're not going to get too ahead of ourselves and go off the walls about how great we are. We're going to stay level-headed, enjoy this one, watch the film, see what we can get better at and move on to the next one. That's a veteran mentality for Baltimore, a team I think that has learned from previous failures. Again, only 2 playoff wins in Lamar Jackson's previous 6 seasons. I don't usually put too much emphasis on the regular season meeting. I'm not going to put too much emphasis on this one. It was back in September. Both teams very different now than what they were. That being said, Derrick Henry had an 87-yard touchdown on the first Ravens drive. It was 21-3 by midweek to the second. But the key, Buffalo only had 12 first downs in that game, all right? They could not move the football against Baltimore's defense. Ravens 7.9 yards per play, Bills just 4.1. And I know that Buffalo's gotten better as the season progressed. I know this is probably the best season Josh Allen has ever had, all right? Lowest sack rate, second in turnover rate, an offensive line that's ranked 3rd in pass block win rate, and Buffalo's offensive line that stays healthy all season. But this is a different animal when you're talking about Baltimore right now. The Ravens, since they moved Kyle Hamilton back to deep safety in week 11, number 1 in the NFL in expected points allowed per play on defense. That includes the postseason. We watched these 2 teams all year. My gut says the Ravens are better, especially on the defense side of the ball. The betting markets are saying Baltimore is the best team in the NFL. I agree. Right now, the Ravens certainly have that. They're number 1 in the NFL in yards per play on offense. They're 0 yards per play better on offense than the Bills. They're number 5 on D in yards per play full season. They weren't even good in September. Buffalo's tied for 20th in that regard. I'm not fading Baltimore. Ravens or pass for this betting.
All right, and that's kind of how I feel about my best bet. Now, look, I know I can tend to be a real contrarian here, and I know that the Lions fans are going to be really mad at me. And hey, look, Jared Goff deserves his flowers. He is probably also in my top 3 to be MVP. He has played his proverbial butt off all season long. I know the Lions don't lose games as favorites, except for that one time to the Bucs way back in week 2. The overs hit in basically 6 of the last games that the Commanders have been an underdog. So points being at a premium doesn't really fit this narrative here. And Jared Goff doesn't really beat himself, right? 3 games out of the last 14, he's thrown an interception. That means 11 mistake-free games. So why the hell am I betting the Washington football team? Well, let's be honest. We know that David Montgomery is going to be back, but that doesn't mean that there aren't still injuries lingering, specifically on the defensive side of this Lions team. Yes, the bye week is helpful. Sometimes you get some of those guys back and sometimes you don't. And there's a lot of question marks there. Now, I know this isn't college football, but I found it really interesting during the college football playoffs. Every team that got a bye ended up being a detriment. The Lions have been rocking and rolling for weeks. Maybe that bye hurts them, maybe it doesn't. But the Commanders won 6 straight to get themselves into this position. I have thought Jaden Daniels, all season long has just done a terrific job. 9 interceptions for a rookie quarterback is almost phenomenal. Over 3,500 yards and, of course, 25 touchdowns. He's got a trio of wide receivers, most notably the veteran on that side of the ball, Terry McLaurin, who has done a great job to make this offense explosive. I know 9.5 points seems like, hey, just take the Lions in a teaser, even though it's non-traditional. Take the Lions in a money line parlay, fine. I'm not calling for the outright upset here. I'm just saying that 9.5 points is a lot for a Commanders team who showed excellent poise in a hostile environment last week in Tampa. Not 1 second did Jaden Daniels show me that he was a rookie quarterback on that road. And that Bucs defense, you've heard me talk about all season long. I like this Commanders team. I know we joke about their namesake quite often, but I think this is going to be a closer game than the spread indicates. I do think it is going to be high flying with these dynamic offenses. And if the Commanders defense can show up like they did last week, put some pressure on Jared Goff and company, be able to shut down the run, that is going to be the difference maker here. Again, I think Washington has all the momentum in the world, and they didn't necessarily expect to make the playoffs when this season started. I do think as far as that coaching staff goes, Cliff Kingsbury is awesome at play calling. I think there is so many reasons to like the Lions here that everybody is discrediting this Washington team, but do not do that. 9.5 points is too many. Give me the Washington football, whatever their team name is now. I like them plus the points, and good luck to all those that put the Lions in a money line parlay. I hope you don't get caught being too chalky. All right, let's bring the guys back for a farewell. We'll be back next week for the AFC and NFC championship games. It's going to be a real fun one, guys. Marco D'Angelo, Joe Raineri, Teddy Covers, Gianni the Greek, Andy Lang, and of course, Ralph Michaels. Until next week, let's bet on it.